What has given these people the permission to think that they know better than science and every single qualified authority?
This is the result of a media that nobody can trust. I still do not know the truth.
But we don't even know how the virus is spread.
A dear friend is in a coma with coronavirus. He's under 40 and was in excellent condition.
I just went to a crowded Red Robin for lunch, and I'm 30. It was delicious. And I took my sweet time eating my meal because this is America,
is an attack
and I
on
will
our
do
rights.
what I want.
Specifically, our right to peacefully assemble is being infringed upon.
I hate how conservatives have turned a global pandemic into their little personal freedom and victimization
We must
tantrum.
absolutely resist any government that runs amok and takes advantage of a crisis. This is how your liberty dies. Stand up, America, and resist.
I'm afraid I have a confession to make of Catholic proportions. I honestly don't know the first thing about playing chess. I suppose I get the gist of it as a metaphor for one's life choices. According to my Netflix binge watch of The Queen's Gambit, most chess pieces can only move up or down the board or sideways without any real sense of ingenuity. But there are exceptions where some can move diagonally and others still can magically gallop around the board in every which way, like horses, which I assume are the pieces that, well, are carved to look like horses. It all makes perfect sense as a strategy for danger avoidance, for survival, if you will. When confronted head-on with an insurmountable obstacle, you find a way to drastically change who and where you are. And so, in response, these carved horses possess the critical skill to pivot, to detour, to radically move out of harm's way. But what about us? How do we survive today when we're surrounded by all sides? When a pandemic's reach is relentlessly encroaching our lives from every direction, quietly oozing into every single nook and cranny of what your normal used to be. So then tell me, what then is your next move? Did you know in George Orwell's 1984, Winston, the main protagonist, is stuck in a totalitarian regime that controls every aspect of social life? What people say and who they say it to, how people spend each and every minute. It's all overseen and well documented by their leaders. And clearly, there are some literary parallels that can be drawn to our present day lives. But that said, even more intriguing to me is his central concept of doublethink, the ability to simultaneously hold on to two contradictory thoughts in your head and yet believe them both to be true at the same time. Call it a mental last resort, a cerebral shift to preserve oneself in a moment of extreme crises. Our collective response as a country to the COVID-19 pandemic and everything socio-political under the sun takes on a larger, much more alarming and cacophonous doublethink, particularly on social media. Constantly at odds and contradicting ourselves at every turn. Masks prevent the spread of the virus versus masks violate our civil liberties. Black Lives Matter versus all lives matter. Vaccination selfies versus disease parties. Systematically defunding the police as a racist institution versus the belief of only a few bad apples. Our incomprehensible, varied views on the historical impact of 8 minutes and 46 seconds. People often like to use the simplified trope of a nation divided to describe us. That civil discourse is down the tubes, that a middle ground must be found. But when white supremacists march with tiki torches in Charlottesville or unkempt, homegrown terrorists storm the Capitol, and the President of the United States publicly claims during a press conference, these are very fine people on both sides. Or in a video tweet, go home now, we have to have peace. We love you. You're very special. Well, then our so-called nation divided has now mutated into a perilous mass scale of doublethink, and that should give us all pause as a people. Biologically speaking, every living thing needs warmth from others. Even the biggest and most beastly of us. Wolves travel in packs, orca whales in pods, lions in prides, elephants in parades. Oh, how joyous it must all be. But how do we meaningfully curate our lives and congregate together when we are currently swamped in isolation? Coronavirus has hit us like a Fukushima tsunami, my friends. A near nuclear disaster that has swept us all away from ourselves and each other, changing how we interact with each other on radioactive proportions. I mean, with all of the social distancing recommendations and regulations placed upon us, though medically speaking, completely prudent and practical, we nonetheless pay a price. A pivot has ultimately been forced upon us, for better or worse. Taking on Zoom meetings in your underwear, or Facebook posting of our latest dinner concoctions, cheese-filled focaccia with broccolini and squash blossom. Mwah! Really? Puppy pics? Sharing your newfound medical expertise, because apparently we're all now doctors in white coats these days, writing prescriptions of misinformation, conspiracy theories, and outright lies. It seems that for many of us, we've taken to social media to find that middle ground within ourselves, or at least in rock bottom terms, to figure out how to curate our own misery. Ironically, numbers often have a way of naming things that words cannot, identifying trends from 30,000 feet that a poetic paragraph cannot. For instance, did you know social media platforms have seen a 61% uptick in usage as people try their best these days to stay intimately connected with family, friends, and colleagues? It's true. Tin Can and String, like Facebook and Instagram, have seen a 40% increase from February to March 2020 alone. And communication apps like Messenger and WhatsApp have seen a 70% increase during this period too. Truth be told, research has also shown that how we choose to portray ourselves on social media, it's not really how we see ourselves. Oh no, not really when we're staring in the mirror at 3 a.m. or watching Netflix for so damn long that it actually has the audacity to pause itself and ask, are you still watching? We have mentally become our own overseers at this point, always opting to publicly wear our Sunday bests on social media these days. But why? Is this some sort of virtual survival mode of carving our own horse in the moment? Or are we all just broken timepieces that keep ticking on the same second, as if stuck on an idea of who we wish we were? But don't get it wrong, this COVID-19 pandemic does not put us all on the same boat. According to an Instagram post I most recently read, we're all in the same storm. But some of us have yachts, and others of us have slowly sinking rowboats in need of a plug. And yet, even still, some of us are just drowning. Alone, quietly, with no life preserver in sight. By the end of 1984, Winston is found playing chess by himself in misery. His loneliness has finally taken over all aspects of his life. His abilities to meaningfully interact with others have finally slipped away, and his face plainly shows it. A twisted concoction of every human emotion imaginable. His crow's feet are wrinkles through time, dreams now a million charred, hopes gone up in smoke. He is lost in himself. He has lost who he is. Winston can no longer see his next move, but worse, he can't even see the board. Here's your caveat. When playing chess, after your very first move, there are then over 400 possible new positions, new metaphorical life choices for you to consider. After 2, almost 72,000. After 3, almost 9 million. And after 4, billions. That's right, billions. So then tell me, what then is your next move? Take your time. Think it through.